And now we have recently just seen the new CEO come into play. Artie is the CEO of Harley-Davidson. Is he a golf guy or is he an experienced guy? And give us your thoughts and where that's going.
Well, I went to one of the roundtable meetings in Arizona when he first got hired. And, you know, he's a real personable guy. He believes in team building. He believes that people should go back to work at Juno, which is number one in my book. And, you know, his number one thing that he wants to do is he wants to make dealer profitability a number one priority for all of us. And you know what? He's done that. You know, we'll see how he does in the next 3 or 4 years, but the guy is personable. You know, I think he's an experienced guy. I think he's the right guy for the job compared to the guy we just had there. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think anybody would be better than what we've had in the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm not afraid to say that. You know, nobody answers the phone. Nobody calls you back. You can't get any warranty work done. You know, Harley's a mess. And this guy's got his hands full getting this thing fixed. And I think he's going to get it done. I really do. But the proof is in the pudding. We'll see.
This is a show for anybody that has something that they want to say. It's going to be full of people with a lot of energy, CEOs, OEMs, vendors.
Best practice ideas in this industry and of neighboring industries.
We're talking to people that are on the cutting edge of processes, management.
Serial entrepreneurs, authors. We really have a feast of all different types of senior level people.
A cornucopia, as it were.
A plethora, maybe. Grab a pen, grab a cup of coffee, and have a seat. Start writing. This is GarageCast.
GarageCast. Welcome to GarageCast. Dantzler, as you were saying, pre-record button. We're in the presence of greatness here. We got royalty in the room.
Royalty.
Yeah.
Mark Dukes is on the podcast with us, Tony.
Yeah, owner GM.
Mark? Good morning, guys.
Yeah, owner GM of High Desert Harley-Davidson. We're going to get to that, Mark, but super pumped to have you. Thanks for doing this. We love interviewing all the people that come on, but it's always fun to talk to somebody that is steeped in the industry and has seen it change over time. So that's cool. We're excited.
He's over in Idaho, so I tell people what time zone that is. They can't even find it on a map.
It's mountain time, same as you guys.
Fantastic.
Oh.
Last week we were in Arizona. Baby. Yeah, we were in Arizona time zone, and they were talking about how great they were because they were Arizona time zone, right? It never changes.
Right. Well, that is pretty good.
Yeah.
That is pretty good gig. Yeah.
Hey, man, let's just jump into this. 40 plus years in the power sports industry. That's amazing. Walk our listeners through your background, how you found yourself currently in Boise, Idaho. But let's start at the beginning. How'd you get here?
So way back when, 1985, I was working at a gas station down in Platte River in Littleton, Colorado, doing emissions tests. And one of my buddies was working in parts at Fay Myers Motorcycle World. And he stopped by and he said, "Hey, they got an opening for a setup guy at Fay Myers. You ought to apply." So I did. What I didn't know at that time, Tony, is I was to be working outside in the pen with all my tools and the power washer where everybody washed the bikes. So I worked outside all summer long. The tools were hot when you touched them. And, you know, the guys would wash the bikes, let everything get all wet. And I did that all summer long. And then that fall, I got demoted to a lot boy. And so I cleaned the toilets and did deliveries and things like that. And then early spring the next year.
So you just jumped past lot boy. You went right in at the royalty position. And then you got demoted back to lot boy. I'm not following that.
That's correct. Yeah, I got demoted to lot boy. And then in early 1986, they put me in as a service advisor. I did that for like 3 years. And it was great. I mean, it was a super busy time back then. Worked on old Honda turbos and CX500s and Magnas with cam problems and all that. So I learned a lot about motorcycles back then.
Hey, Mark, this was Fay Myers on Alameda that has since burned to the ground, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So way back then, all we had was Honda. I don't think we got Kawasaki and Suzuki in them till like 1989 or so.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the second you said the Honda Turbo, I think we all knew what era we were playing in, right?
Yeah.
The CX Turbos.
So in 1989, they figured out that I could sell stuff being a service advisor. They put me in the sales, and I was their number one guy the first month, second month, third month. About a year in, I was a sales manager at Fay Myers Motorcycle World, and I worked there for 15 plus years. Then I ultimately got fired from that job. We won't talk about the reasons why, but I got fired from that job. And then I went home and felt sorry for myself for about 3 months. And I took a job at Sun Honda. And so I worked on Thornton. That was for about 4 years. I worked on the metric
hang
side.
Hang tight, Mark. I want to get to Sun on its own here. Talk to me a little bit more about Fay Myers, namely how you got fired. Let's just go right at this.
Okay,
we got to know the man we're talking to here.
I didn't really get along great with the general manager at that time. And, things started going downhill probably the last 6 months that I worked there. But I do have to say about Fay Myers, I learned how to retail stuff at Fay Myers. They were all about retail. Everything was retail. Parts to service was retail. Everything was retail. And it was a great experience. I learned a ton and I wouldn't take any of it back. But the 3 months that I sat home feeling like a loser that I got fired, that was bad. So I ended up going to work for Sun, and I worked for Ron Lang, and, he taught me how to say no. So if a guy made an offer on a bike, the answer was no. So I learned a lot from Ron Lang too. So it's kind of Gary Myers taught you how to do retail. Ron Lang told me how to say no. And so I worked there for about 4 years. I never worked at the Harley store. I did help move all the stuff into the new Harley store, but I never worked at the Harley store. In fact, I didn't really know anything about Harleys back then.
Huh. But you did have boats on the lot too, right? So you had metric bikes,
we had,
you had boats.
Premier pontoons. And, we do the boat shows and stuff like that in Colorado, and we'd have to learn how to try to sell Premier pontoon boats. But one thing I did learn, you got to be an expert in everything you do. You can't be a great motorcycle salesman, a street bike motorcycle salesman, an ATV salesman, a UTV salesman. You got to know what you're doing. So, you got to have somebody specialized that deals with just Premier pontoons and knows everything about boats, And
the Harley guys were just Harley guys and you were just the metric guys. Is that how that worked out?
Yeah, I was one of the sales managers there, and we had one of the sales managers was like 4 or 5 of us. So it's a glorified sales position because we still sold.
Hey, when were you doing sales management at Sun in the Harley space?
Well,
I never did sales management in the Harley space.
It was all in the metric still.
Side.
Okay, got it.
But I remember, on a Saturday, we had a little gal that just did credit apps and stuff on Saturdays. We would sell 50, 60 bikes on a Saturday.
Yeah,
it was crazy.
Lord.
And one day, and I remember Ron Lang was always about Wiener Schnitzel and always getting lunch. And I used to do the Denver Post full page ads, and the Rocky Mountain News. We had all our special prices in there. And the deadline was at like 12:30 or 1 o'clock. And Ron would be like, "Oh no, Mark, stop what you're doing. Go to Wiener Schnitzel." I was a glorified Wiener Schnitzel, delivery boy sales manager for Ron Lang.
That's the quote of the year right there. I was a bona fide Wiener Schnitzel delivery salesman.
Yeah. The highest paid Wiener Schnitzel delivery guy ever.
That's awesome.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Just worry about getting lunch. So it was a great experience. And then I got headhunted by Jeff Lewis out of Las Vegas Harley. He called me one day. I was sitting at the desk with Ron Lang about 8:30 in the morning, and Jeff called me. Go ahead.
Before we get to Jeff Lewis, because I think everybody listening probably knows Jeff Lewis, and there's a whole nother chapter of your life coming up here. Talk to me a little bit. What did you learn as a sales manager? How often because I'm trying to foreshadow kind of what's coming with your current position, how much training you do, and how important that is. Tell us a little bit about the training you did or didn't do. Did you do it with the pontoon boat guys, with the Harley guys, all separate? What was your sales management job other than the Wiener Schnitzel component?
So I did a lot of sales training down there. I would take the guys up to the conference room and we would just talk about doing worksheets and the process, and how you charge freight and setup and dock fee, how you circle how the freight and setup and dock is non-negotiable, give them all the work tracks that they would need. I did it weekly with them. We had like 15, 18 sales guys working there at the time. It was crazy. And, it was a great experience, a lot of staff, a lot of, it was a lot of hierarchy there. And, and I was like a sales manager, but, I was just a sales manager. It was nothing special there. Just a regular sales guy, plus a sales
but how old were you at that time?
Had to be, I don't know, 33 years old.
Probably a great experience to have that many people underneath you to try to corral every day.
Yeah,
It
man.
was. And there were a lot of great guys that worked there, and I really did enjoy it. And Ron Lang, of course, was entertaining all by himself. So that was fun.
I think
You know, and
everybody
also
in this
Dave,
industry is entertaining, man.
yeah, Dave Burke worked there at the same time too. So that was also entertaining.
Davey Burke. Oh my God.
Yeah, good old Davey.
Yeah.
You know, way back when Davey and I were roommates back when I worked at Fay Myers.
I don't want to know any of those
For a long
stories.
time.
Any of those stories.
Those are. Hey, is he still? He was with Aces Used Bikes here in Colorado last time I heard.
Yeah,
He's
he
still
was
there.
with
Do you know where
Ace.
he ended?
I think he's back in Arizona, but I still think he's buying used bikes for Fay Myers.
Interesting. He's great at that. That was his love affair, is finding those deals on the pre-owned. That's super cool. Tony, you ever notice how a lot of people that we talked to on this podcast, their whole career started off at Fay Myers, and none of them are still at Fay Myers?
Yeah. Except for Jason White.
Except for Jason. He won't come on. So
yeah, Jason's
and
still there.
Funny about Jason White, I remember
a lot of things are funny about Jason White.
We hired Jason White to be a finance guy from Space Age Credit Union. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's been there a long time.
Yeah, well, he had that career in finance, and so I'm sure taking him out of that world and putting him into the power sport industry, those first couple of years were probably pretty funny as well.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So
go ahead, Tony.
Yeah, so they, like you said, you're at Sun and you got recruited by Jeff Lewis. That took you out to Vegas?
Took me out to Vegas. But a quick funny story about that. He called me in the morning. I was sitting with Ron Lang and I said, "Hey, Jeff, I'd love to talk to you, but I'm going to have to call you back later after work." So I was driving down C470 and I didn't have really good cell phone range back then. So I pulled over to the side of the highway and Jeff Lewis basically interviewed me on the side of C470 before I flew out there for my real interview. So that was pretty interesting.
Awesome.
And I had just gotten engaged to a gal that I'm married to now. And we were only dating for like three months.
Oh.
And I had to say, "Hey, by the way, I think we're moving to Vegas." So that was a lot of tears, but it worked out. But we can get to that here in a second.
All right. So Jeff recruits you. You do the interview on the side of the road, and then you end up in Vegas. Tim Cashman, Red Rocks. Let's go into that phase of your life in Vegas.
Okay, so I started in Vegas in like June of 85, or I'm sorry, not 85, 2005. And it was great. I didn't know. I told Jeff Lewis, I said, "Listen, I don't know anything about Harley-Davidsons." And he said, "Well, hey, I got to interview you because I was at lunch with Ed Lemko and he recommended that I at least call you and interview you. I'm not going to hire anybody for this job until you fly out here." So I flew out there and I got the job. But I remember going to lunch with Don Andrus and Tim Cashman and Jeff Lewis. And they're like, and they were like this the whole time, blah, 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 the whole time. And, Don Andrus, he was pretty stern. He's like, "Hey, I just need you to come here and sell a lot of bikes." And I said, "Hey, listen, Don," I said, "you get the bikes, we'll sell the bikes." And I remember we had months, 120, 140 Harleys out of the Las Vegas store. It was constant. That place was like crazy. You'd have 200 or 300 people come through the door before noon. And we had a guy up there with a counter every day, and I'd have to guess how many people had come through the door, and it was just a big game. And the motor clothes was crazy. The sales in motor clothes and T-shirts, it was nuts. That's back when Harleys were crazy.
Yeah, and you couldn't get them. To your point, when you say you find the bikes and we'll get them, to our non-power sport listeners out there, this was during an era where you simply couldn't find all the bikes. And 2003 was the heyday in the power sport industry, and we were still in that window. So that makes sense, Gotta have something to sell.
Huge rental department there. I think they had 250 bikes in the fleet, and they would defleet those things. And we were selling 2006 Ultras for $19.95, and people were just like bang, 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 bang. And these things had 30, 40,000 miles on them. It's crazy.
That is crazy.
But I remember that's back when they had the dealer show in late July, August. And I remember at Las Vegas Harley, we had like 3 or 4 bikes on the floor for sale. We had nothing for sale. It's crazy.
That is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, so that makes me think there's some cutthroat competitiveness. You guys had what are there 4 stores in Vegas and a bunch of AROs in the casino, and AROs additional retail outlets for our listeners?
They just sold motor clothes and stuff at all the casinos, but you had Zion up in Utah, you had Henderson Harley, and then you had Las Vegas Harley. And then we had Las Vegas Harley-Davidson West, which was what Red Rock became out of that store. We can get to that here in a second. But so that store sold metric bikes and it sold used Harleys. And then it would sell some new Harleys. We'd give them some new Harleys over there. But, for a while there, it was very competitive with Henderson and Las Vegas. A guy would come to Las Vegas and negotiate on a bike, and then he'd go over to Henderson and they would try to get the bike from you. And, there was some competition with that. And there was, some ruffled feathers and stuff and hurt feelings, when it came to that. It was pretty competitive for a while there. And then
was Andy Mesa there? It sounds like that. That's still
Andy
his
Mesa
reign.
was there. He's a good friend
so
of mine.
Andy Mesa's a University of Miami guy, so that explains all the hurt feelings and the frustrations you might have with him.
And we're still friends to this day. I talk to him all the time. He's a great guy.
He's a great guy.
He is a great guy.
Hey, was this Mark? Did Marati own these at this point in time still, or
no?
Hadn't
Don Anderson, Tim Cashman.
Okay.
And Mark, were you there? We had Tim Cashman. I think it might have just been Tim and Jeff Lewis come to our 20 club, which was at Lake Las Vegas. Were you in that room with us?
No, I wasn't. That was early on.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember Tim Cashman being in the room, and I didn't know who he was. And Jeff Lewis said, "Oh yeah, you'll know him before he leaves." He just okay, I'm here now.
Yeah, Tim was a great guy. He was a great leader. He'd always come and check in, make sure we're doing okay, give me advice. He was a great guy. My experience from Las Vegas Harley, if I didn't do Las Vegas Harley for the 10 years I did it, I would have never met Bob Thomas. I'd never be in Boise, Idaho. But we could talk about back to Red Rock here in a second. But it was a great experience.
That's cool. I was just thinking it was probably pretty cutthroat in the Vegas area out there, but
it was for sure. But at Las Vegas, we were kind of the powerhouse. We had all the bikes, we had all the used bikes, we had all the new bikes, we had all the motor clothes, we had the LVHD license plate frame. We had all the good stuff. So people came to Vegas really to buy a bike with a Las Vegas Harley-Davidson frame on it. I really believe a lot of that. And you'd have guys coming in, the bell boys from the casinos with down payments on motorcycles. The guy did do deals by the pool. And it was one guy walked in with 15 grand cash. He goes, "Hey, I'm looking for Mark." And the guy's information was written on a bar napkin. I remember like it was yesterday.
Well, I remember Jeff Lewis planned a dealer visit during that 20 club. We did a dealer visit and he had an event going on during the dealer visit. And I'm like, oh, that's convenient. And you walk in the doors and Evel Knievel is signing autographs as you walked in the door. And I'm like,
that sounds about right. Cooler? Yeah. They had a lot of great events out there. And I remember, I don't know if you guys know Chad Riddle, but I've known Chad for a long time. He worked with me at Sun. But when I first started at Las Vegas Harley, it was around Mother's Day. No, it was around Father's Day. And he was interviewing for the job and he was thinking about coming out there. And it was about 4 p.m. on a Saturday. This gal walks in my sales office. She goes, "Hey, I'm looking to get a gift card." And I'm like, "Okay, well, we saw them over there at the motocross car." And I walk over. She goes, No, I want to get one for like 35 grand. I want to buy my husband a bike for Father's Day. And right at that moment, my buddy Chad Riddle says, "I want to work here." And he moved the next week. Just crazy.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
So what was the next move?
Yeah, where are we at?
Okay, so I did sales at Las Vegas Harley for a year, and I kept bugging the GM there. His name was Tony Cook and Jeff Lewis. I said, "Hey, listen, I want my own store. So they said, "Hey, we're going to get another franchise. We're going to have a franchise for Red Rock Harley, a full franchise, but you got to start at Las Vegas Harley-Davidson West." So at that point, we moved up Sahara Street to an old Acura car store, and we opened up Las Vegas Harley-Davidson West with Harleys. And all the motorcycles were out in the parking lots. We had 24-hour security and nothing was ever clean. But, that store started to grow and grow. And then, we were the little kid on the block. So that, Las Vegas was still king. Then it was Henderson. And then it was good old Las Vegas Harley-Davidson West. Well, we grew that place. And then we finally moved down to the Red Rock current location. And that was back in 2008. And we had our grand opening that deal. We had all the professional poker players there. We had poker tables set up all over the store. I think we had $150,000 weekend party there. It was crazy. And the crazy part about it was my wife was pregnant and my son was born on the grand opening of Red Rock Harley. So a pretty big memory there. Now my kid's 17. Oh, yeah, just turned 17.
Holy moly.
Yeah. So
Great
I remember
memories.
my rep Chip Thornton's like, "Hey, You got to go to the hospital. You got to go to the hospital. You have to leave. This is like 5 PM. I go, okay, let's go. As soon as I got to the hospital, they drug her into labor. Like boom, boom. It's crazy. So I worked
I was going to say, is that where you got the dose of what events should look like? I mean, we're going to get to your Idaho store here or stores here in a second, but is that where you saw like, this is what events should be? That your time during the Vegas?
I learned a lot about events and planning and, execution. It's all about execution with events. So, we had some big parties there. I remember 200 or 300 people would show up, 400 people. At this tiny little store. You couldn't even walk through the place. We were doing $50,000 in motor clothes sales in one day at this little Las Vegas Harley-Davidson West. It was crazy. So I
got some people right now going, what are motor clothes? As in Harley GMs asking, what are motor clothes? I don't know what you're talking about. So there you go. They are important, damn it.
T-shirts and more T-shirts. So we moved to the big store. Anyway, we had the poker tables and all that. And we started growing that store, and before you knew it, that store had exceeded the sales at Henderson. And then eventually 2 or 3 years in, it exceeded the sales at Las Vegas Harley. And that store was on fire. We were the #1 service department in the country there. And we were selling a good amount of new bikes and a lot of used bikes. And we learned how to buy a lot of used bikes through the auctions and everything else. And that store was growing and growing rapidly. And I remember in April of 2014, I was at a breakfast meeting with Don and Tim and Andy and Nick Revellini, who was like the vice president. And I'd asked Andy, I said, hey, Andy, you're going to have to leave. I got to talk to these guys real quick. And on that day, I resigned from Red Rock Harley to go to Idaho. So I think
how'd you make that connection? How'd you make that connection in Idaho?
I met Bob Thomas in some Harley performance groups, and his brother had slipped on the ice in the parking lot and cracked his skull. And he had a little bit of brain trauma, and he was going to resign. And I just said, hey, Bob, if there's ever an opening up there, I'd be interested in moving out of Vegas and running that store.
Yeah.
Well, the next thing I know, I'm having a meeting with Bob Thomas. We started negotiating probably about a year out. And I met him at a bar down on 16th Street Mall in Denver at the dealer show. And he said, hey, I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I wrote all the stuff down on the napkin. And I left and I said, hey, it was great meeting you. Well, it took about 8 to 9 months for us to close that deal, and ended up moving up here. And, one thing I can say about Bob Thomas, first off, he's a real stickler, and he pushes and pushes and pushes. I've never met a partner that pushes so hard to sell motorcycles and motor clothes and parts and everything else. I mean, we can sell 110 bikes in a month, and he'll call me and say, hey, last year we sold 112. Where'd you drop the ball? I just can't believe you didn't make last year's numbers. And the guy's super intense, but I'll tell you what, the reason why we do so well at High Desert is he never stops pushing, and he's made me that way too. It's all about pushing and execution for events. You could talk about it all you want, of all the things you want to do, but making it happen is what's really important. And with that, you've got to have the right staff in place. And with the right staff, you've got to pay your staff. You don't pay these sales managers peanuts. You pay them real money and you get real results. I was looking the other day, I've got 25 people that work here that have been over here for over 10 years. And I've been at the company now for 12 years. And we run about 63 employees at the Harley store year round. I haven't laid anybody off. I'm still open 7 days a week, probably because I'm too scared to close for a day. I don't want to miss anything. But, I'm responsible for these guys to make their paychecks, and I've got great management team. I mean, these guys are stable. I've got a great marketing person that does all 3 stores. She's got 2 assistants. We've got a great force here. We've got almost 100 employees company-wide. So it's a little bit crazy.
Mark, hang on, because you just threw out a whole lot that I think we need to unpack there. You talked about pushing and execution on events, which put that in the parking lot for a second. You talked about that you're open year-round, 7 days a week. The listener should also know you're consistently in the top 10% of the most profitable Harley dealers out there. You're killing it. You're in Boise, Idaho, killing it. Open year-round, 7 days a week. You pay your people very well. Before we tackle those, I want to just take one step back and talk about the dealership you have. Can you lay out the campus for us with the dealership you currently have? And how do you wrangle all those? Do you get all those guys together, or are they independent like you were at Sun?
Well, we're all together, but we're all independent too. So you got High Desert Harley, which is a store I work at, 80% of the time now. I've had to spread out myself a little bit. So I spend 80% of my time at High Desert. It's a 54,000 square foot store. We sell between 1,000 and 1,200 bikes a year, new and used, consistently. We have a learn to ride thing, which is a big deal for us. It's our own deal. We go through MSF. We train about 900 people a year with a 20% conversion out there. We've got the Indian store at a marketplace directly across the parking lot. And then right next to that, with a glass wall in between it, we have a Triumph store as well. And that store has been a great store, Indian Triumph store that we have. And then 30 miles away from here, we've got a store in Caldwell, Idaho that does all of our metric stuff.
So you got your hands full and you're overseeing all of them?
Yeah, I oversee all of them. And it's been a little bit of a challenge recently because we had a little bit of turnover at the BOP store back in April. And I had to hire another GM to run that store. Well, we've got it up and running now pretty well, but it took a second to figure it out and get it going. I haven't been in the metric business for over 20 years, Sam. So it's been a little bit of a learning curve for Mr. Dukes over here. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So, so we hired Tug from, he worked at Thunderbird at one point, and I think he worked up in Durango as well. But he's been working for us since April, and he's done a great job for us growing that business. Over at our Indian Triumph store, I hired a guy named James Skinner. He used to run the Cowboy stores in Texas, and he also ran the Hawaii store. So he's running the Triumph Indian store. So, so I've got some really good leadership of these stores, and, I've got sales guys at the Harley store. They've been here for 6-8 years. They've like core sales guys have been here forever. And like I say, I don't want to lay anybody off. I just want to figure out how to sell more stuff and make more money to keep everybody employed. That's really our mission here.
Hey, Mark, what do you think about the new Indian news?
Well, I think it's a big change. An investment group, you worry a little bit about what's going to happen 5 years down the road. Is it going to get sold again, or what's going to happen? But, in my position, it's got to be rah, everything's going to be great. Let's keep this thing rolling and sell as many Indians as we can. And we'll deal with what happens down the road when it happens, when and if it happens. I'm disappointed that Polaris got rid of it. I mean, it's been through so many changes of ownership over the years. And I think they were just getting traction, with flat track racing and, all the new bikes they have out, the Roadmasters and all the good stuff and the Pursuits, and their Scout line is great. They've got a great lineup. I hope they don't lose their momentum, with this new ownership.
Got it. As Dantzler alluded to, you're driving the nation with that top 10% number in the Harley Composite in our 20 clubs, and you're one of the strongest. You're in one of the strongest Harley groups that we have. What's the magic? What's the secret sauce? I know you said that you have this. You've had a lot of people that have taught you a lot of stuff, and specifically being pushed. But what kind of culture is within the four walls of your store that makes such a successful dealership group?
Well, we're one team going one direction. Every morning I walk the store. I say good morning to all the employees. I've been doing it for 20 years. I think it's super important that they know that they can trust you as a GM. And I know everybody's name in the entire company, and they all know me. And, the culture, when you walk into in a High Desert, there's energy in the store. There's shit happening. It's going on, We've got Harley girls, we got music, we got bikes, it's a fun place to come. And it's all about making sure that these guys can make, like employee making a decision. Hey, if a customer comes in and there's a complaint, make a decision, whether it's right or wrong, make a decision and just make sure the customer wins, Take care of customers. That's our number one thing. If you take care of them, they'll come back. If it costs you $500 or $1,000, they'll come back. And I'm a believer, and it works. We're all about community. We do a lot of military things here. We do a lot of rides. We play bingo on the weekends, which is crazy how many people show up to play bingo. Some of the events we do, it's crazy. And, and we're kind of in your face marketing. We, for the last 2 or 3 months, we've talked about it in our PG groups. We send out an email and a text every single day. Do we have some fallout? Yeah, but our numbers speak for themselves. We continue to be one of the number one guys in our group every single month after month. And I just think, like I said earlier, execution. You've got to execute every day. You just got to keep everything going that you can. Intensity is super important. Our sales guys, they have huddle meetings every 2 hours. Hey, where you guys at? What are we doing? Where we been? Where we going? We have status boards. We got status boards like back in the 80s, in every single department. I know where everybody's at every moment in the store. And speaking of service, we've got a great service department. There's months where we'll do $250,000, $300,000 in labor back there in Boise, Idaho.
Damn.
We do a lot of police business. When I came here, we didn't do any police business at all in Idaho. And now we've got Meridian, and we have Idaho State Police, and we've got CUNA. We've got all the different places that are, all the different cities, and it just keeps growing. We're working on getting Boise right now. So we went from a no Harley town to pretty much a Harley town.
Yeah, no joke. Mark, last time you and I talked, I asked you about that top 10, and you were telling me what you're alluding to right now, which is it's all about culture. But the culture is they all drive themselves. They're empowered to make the decisions themselves. I have to believe that frees you up to work, as we always say, on the business instead of in the business every day. Is that fair?
100%. In this store, we've been voted top place to work for the last 5 years in Idaho. So it doesn't happen by accident. I mean, we've got a great team. And if you look at our reviews and everything else, you can tell we got a great team and we got a great business.
It's funny because I remember when I was moderating your 20 club, we spent so much time talking about culture, with the Scott Fisher stores in there, and Sean Delaney, he's always bringing it back to culture. And in fact, he's got a different view of culture, does he not?
He does. He's all about, hey, when you're the number one manager at the store, we're going to give you a stuffed teddy bear. And that
teddy bear.
And I remember making fun of him. I don't know if you were at that meeting or not, Sam, but
I was there. We were in Vegas.
And I'm like, I don't know who gets excited about teddy bears. And he goes, oh, they really like it. They really like getting a teddy bear. I said, well, I can tell you one thing for sure. I'm not going to be giving any of my managers teddy bears. I think I'll just, yeah. Right.
But he gave you one, didn't he?
Yeah, somehow.
I
ended up with a teddy bear. I think that's a used teddy bear too.
It's like a Care Bear.
It's a Care Bear.
Bag.
That's Delaney caring about Dukes right there.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember a picture that was had between the two of you in the exchange of that teddy bear at our meeting in Vegas, right? That picture's floating around here somewhere.
Yeah, for sure it is.
Delaney always reminds me of, the guy who couldn't pay his implementation commitment fees, right? So he decided at a dealer visit to his store in New Mexico during the balloon festival, he just took some obsolete blankets out of inventory and gave everybody an obsolete balloon blanket and said, now I don't have to pay my ICs, right? We're like, no, you gotta pay your ICs.
You gotta do what you gotta do. I don't know if you remember when I got that Monopoly game. I got High Desert on the Monopoly game, and I was trying to peddle these Monopoly games. It was cool for the first year. We were on the news and stuff a lot. It was great, but now I can't even give these things away. So that's one thing that Bob Thomas will say, I told you not to do that. Well, I guess he gets to be right again. But for the first year, it was real good.
But it's just fun. You can feel it. Our listeners can feel it. Like working for you would just be freaking fun. It's hard work. We're 7 days a week. We drive it hard, but we also have a good time. So I like that, man. Do. Proof's in the pudding for sure.
And we do a lot of team building. Like they're going to ride go-karts on Thursday. And we have celebrations when they hit goal, like service. We'll take them to a real nice restaurant here in town. And, we do that almost every single month for some departments. So, it costs you a couple grand to do it every time you do it, but it's worth it because they love it. And we just stay involved with our employees and our staff, and the techs love it. And it's great. We're just one big happy family. I can honestly say, and I said it once at a Christmas party, there's not one person at any of these stores that I don't like. I like everybody in this entire.
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's I'm not sure many owners or general managers can say that about the people in their store. It's typically that, 85, 90%. And then there's the person that I deal with because they're good, forward facing with the customer, whatever that might be. That's incredible.
Yeah. You got a little bit of that going on too, but I'll tell you what, we do have a lot of fun here, and we move the metal. We really do. I'm just very grateful that I ended up in Idaho, and I'm very grateful that I've been blessed with the staff that I have, because without these guys, I'd be nowhere. You're only as good as what the people around you. So
Yeah.
that's what I've learned. And it's
That's
worked.
an incredible statement. There's even one person in this podcast I don't like. I don't know how you do it with 65 people on staff. Learn to ride program. See, it took him a minute, Mark. Learn
No,
to
I
ride
got it.
program.
I was thinking the same thing in my head. It starts with Dantzler.
You very quickly rushed by your Learn to Ride program and how many conversions you have on that program. Talk to us a little bit about that. We had Gus on the program, Gus Gussoff down there in Emerald Coast. He also has a great ride program that he converts a lot of riders into. But tell us a little bit about yours and kind of where that got started, Mark.
So way back when I first started here, we bought a lot next to the High Desert store and we paved it and put electricity to it and everything else. We've got a fleet of about 16 motorcycles. We were going to do the Harley program, but at the last minute, they couldn't get along with the state of Idaho. So we started going with the state program, which was called STAR. And we piggybacked off their curriculum for a couple of years, and then we moved to MSF. Now today, we've got 20 instructors.
Wow.
We run classes 2 or 3 times a week. In fact, we just shut our Learn to Ride thing down last weekend, and the class was full. 31% of the customers that take it are women, and 69% are men, which I find, the women are starting to take a lot more courses.
Yeah.
But it's nonstop, and we do dealer tours. For every Learn to Ride class, we tour through the Harley store, we tour through the Triumph Indian store, we tour through the service department. We give them a real life feeling of owning a motorcycle. If you've never been to High Desert, it's just a sea of motorcycles. Right now, we probably have 250 to 300 used bikes in stock and probably 250 new bikes in stock just on the Harley side, not counting the 50 or 60 bikes we got at the Triumph Indian store and the 150, 200 bikes we have down at the BOP store. So we've got a lot of inventory. We've got, we call it the High Desert Motoplex, and we're going to do a lot of more events together this year. Our annual tent sale, we normally do at the High Desert store 100 to 120 units in February. So that kicks off the year pretty strong for us. So we've been stocking up on used bikes now every single day. I'm writing checks every single day. It seems I've got a guy in Denver buying bikes for me now. And I got a guy in Vegas buying bikes for me. I got a guy in Reno buying bikes for me. I got guys everywhere buying bikes. So we just got to stock up. And it's just commitment and getting it done.
Question on your events, follow-up question for you here. How do you measure if an event is successful or not? Are you looking at transactions per event?
We look at transactions. First off, we put everything on an Eventbrite. So, there are times where we'll get 1,000 to 1,500 people that want to come to the event, like the Grinch for Christmas. The thing's nuts, but we do measure by transaction. And, you're gonna laugh when I tell you this, but we do radio year round on 4 different stations. And everybody says, oh, radio's a waste of time. But every time I don't do radio, we sell less bikes. So I guess we're just in the people's ears constantly. I've done the morning news on Channel 7, which is a big deal here. And I'll run 2 or 3 week promotions during our 10th sale or maybe a promotion during May. And that drives traffic being on the news. If there was an event out there and there was something we haven't tried, I think we've tried everything here, and I just think, we have weekly marketing meetings now. And we talk about things that worked great last week versus what's going to come up this week. We're trying to get our year to finish off strong. We got Black Friday going on all month long. We're trying to get our first quarter handle of what we're going to do for marketing. But everything's on site. We do all of our own printing on site. We make our own banners on site. We make our own hang tags on site. Everything that happens at High Desert, we go company wide. We do everything on site.
Hey, Mark, what I'm picking up on here is, it isn't that you haven't evolved. I mean, because you have to evolve to become relevant or to stay relevant in this business for sure. But it sounds to me like everything that you learned from the early days in the metric world, when you transitioned into Las Vegas, it doesn't sound to me like you've changed a lot of what you're doing, meaning you go in, you connect with the people that are working for you, you grind like hell, you're open 7 days a week, you throw down events, you do your traditional marketing, and you keep up. And there's a theme to that, because I see a lot of people that are successful in this industry that don't talk about how everything has changed and my customer doesn't want to come in and nobody wants to buy motorcycles anymore. Sounds to me like in the famous words of Nate Stickney in Florida, like that's just fake news. I just go and I get this done.
Well, it's a mindset. I mean, if you think you're not going to sell anything that day, you're not going to sell anything that day. And, in some managers meetings, when we're getting bad news on, on the media and stuff, I say, hey, don't watch the news today. It's not good news. Just worry about what's going on in these four walls. That's all I care about. Let's have a great day. Let's sell some motorcycles. And going back to talking to your employees and stuff, not only do I do it in the morning, I do it probably 3 or 4 times a day. So I've got a really good feel for what's going on in the store. And I know a lot of GMs don't work all day long and they work a couple of days a week or whatever, but your presence is important. And if you're here, whether you're doing anything or not, they know you're here and they're going to perform. And I'm a big believer in that too. I mean, Tug works, all day long. Skinner works all day long. We're here all the time, and we work together as a team. And it just works, Tony. There's no magic or secret sauce to it. It's like either you're going to do it or you're not going to do it. I love motorcycles. I've been involved in motorcycles since I was 7 years old. I love them. I've had 4 jobs, except for when I was a dishwasher at the Morrison and when I was 16. But I have been in the motorcycle business my entire life. This is all I know.
Yeah.
And I'm still super passionate about it 40 years later.
Yeah, clearly. It's awesome. It is awesome. You can totally feel it. Tony, where I thought you were going with that question for Mark was that, well, hang on for a second, because as you're laying it out the way I didn't think you were going to lay it out, he's exactly that. He is that guy who says, I don't care what that says. I'm just going to handle that phone call and see if we can convert that guy. And that is the person he is. But I thought you were going to the fact that, it's all moved to digital. We all have to worry about the digital and the speed to lead, which is also true. But he's just like, it's not either or. We're just going to keep doing everything we've ever done. And then we're also going to start bringing in the speed to lead and the digital conversion and tracking transactions per events. And Mark, I think truly it's a testament to who you've put into place, that they are like you, the Tug Netherleys of the world. I mean, he's like you. He's a great guy. He loves to work hard. He absolutely loves the industry. And that must trickle throughout your whole staff. So, I mean, the fact that you're there every day and you're engaging with your staff every day and none of them, there's not one that you don't like. I think that's just, I still keep going back to that one, Tony.
I know it seems amazing. A little bit crazy, but it's true.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I've ever heard that. I've never heard that from a GM or an owner. That's pretty sweet, man. That speaks volumes to you and the culture that you create. So that's super cool.
100%.
Yeah, let's switch gears a little bit here. Let's talk about, I think we all know how the past 4 to 5 years was going in the Harley space when it came to boots on the ground, dealerships in the country, and Harley corporate. And now we have recently just seen the new CEO come into play. Artie is the CEO of Harley-Davidson. Is he a golf guy or is he an experienced guy? And give us your thoughts and where that's going.
Well, I went to one of the roundtable meetings in Arizona when he first got hired. And, he's a real personable guy. He believes in team building. He believes that people should go back to work at Juno, which is #1 in my book. And, his #1 thing that he wants to do is he wants to make dealer profitability a #1 priority for all of us. And you know what? He's done that. We'll see how he does in the next 3 or 4 years, but the guy is personable. I think he's an experienced guy. I think he's the right guy for the job compared to the guy we just had there. I mean, I hate to say it, but I think anybody would be better than what we've had in the last 4 or 5 years. And I'm not afraid to say that. Nobody answers the phone. Nobody calls you back. You can't get any warranty work done. Harley's a mess. And this guy's got his hands full getting this thing fixed. And I think he's going to get it done. I really do. But the proof is in the pudding. We'll see. But at least we have holdback money back. He's, slowing down inventory. So we're not going to have as much inventory in stock. He's doing all the right things. And so for all next year, we're going to get 5% holdback, which is great. No matter how many we sell, but I want to sell our retail target. It doesn't matter to me. I just want to keep selling motorcycles.
Yeah, but until he gets his hands wrapped around that company, you're just going to keep doing you, right? Keep selling.
Well, you can't worry about what those guys are doing. That's why we're such a big used bike dealer. You just cannot worry about what those guys are going to do. You got to have a backup plan. And we've had a backup plan for the last 3 or 4 years. We've still excelled and made money for the last 3 or 4 years. We've made a lot of it. and it's been good. And we're going to get better. And, I always tell our team, it's hard to stay out in front, but we got to stay out in front. And so we've got that drive to stay out in front, and we're going to stay out in front. As long as I work here, we're going to be out in front. That's the way it's going to be.
Love it.
Mark, let me be devil's advocate with you here. There are people who would think that Boise, Idaho is not the, you don't have competition everywhere, and you don't have a guy cutting prices right down the road from you, and it's got to be easier in Boise. What do you say to people like that?
Well, maybe it is easier. We don't have a lot of competition. I agree with that, but I got Lone Wolf 3 or 4 hours away from me. I've got another store, 120 miles away from me. Why are we selling used bikes all over the country? I don't know. There's got to be a reason. Probably because we have a ton of them and we've got a reputation that we have good stuff. We do a lot of sales out of state, Texas, Florida, New Mexico, Vegas, California. Yeah. We sell bikes everywhere. And, we've been on the map a long time, and I've always been a used bike guy since I worked at Fay Myers Motorcycle World. We were a used bike powerhouse back then. I used to go to Chicago and buy bikes and leave in my grandfather's warehouse. He had a trucking business. And then I'd drive that old shitty box van out to Illinois and get the bikes and bring them back, and we'd sell them in the spring. And we did it for years. And that's how we got the inventory. It's been a long haul, Sam.
I love it, dude. I love the passion, and I love used bikes. So this whole thing gets me all fired up, man. It's amazing how many people don't play in the used bike space because they just want to play the Harley new bike ratio game politically. They want to sell all the new, and there's so many used that could be sold out there, and you're clearly doing that. You mentioned Lone Wolf. Is that the Ernst family still that owns that store, Beth?
And they're a big new bike store. And, and I know the Baracas are a big new bike store, and everybody's a new bike store. And yeah, I know you make more money on new bikes. I get all that. But, you're missing on all the used bikes and all the service work and all the parts that they sell the used bikes. And, if they buy a used bike here, they're probably going to buy a new bike here in a year down the road, 2 years down the road. It's all about getting people on motorcycles and getting them and having them have a great experience at High Desert or any of our other stores, and they come back and buy here. And, we're in Boise, Idaho, and it's a podunk, maybe a little bit, not as much as it used to be. It's actually a great place to live. It's like Denver was 25 years ago, but, we've got a lot of people riding Harleys. We got a lot of people riding motorcycles out here in general. There's great trail riding up in Idaho City and places like that. I mean, it's just a great place to live. I mean, I wouldn't change it for anything. Love it here.
Love that. I've got, Tony, hold on. I got one more question for you, Mark, which is if somebody wanted to come see your operation and wanted to come during an event, being that you have so many events, what would you tell them? What's the event to come to High Desert and check out what you do?
The tent sale.
And when is your tent sale?
February.
February tent sale.
February.
I'm sure that's on your website. People can check it out.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not on my website. I keep it a secret until about a week before. But people know we've been doing it for 10 plus years. So everybody knows about it, and we don't get just a tent. It takes up 3/4 of the parking lot out there. We take our entire showroom floor and our entire warehouse. We put it in the tent, and everything's tagged. And, we have radio here, live radio spots. We have TV spots, it's a big deal. We'll sell, and we've had days where we sold 18, 20 new Harleys out of that tent sale. So that's a pretty good day in Boise, Idaho in February.
I was going to say in February, tent sale. All right, you heard it, gang. last 2 weeks of February at the tent sale in Idaho if you want to go check this out.
Mark Dukes, your personality is infectious, man. I love interviews like this because it just shows a can-do attitude. So I love that. Appreciate you taking the time to come and talk with us.
Hey, no problem. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, for Mark Dukes and
Mark.
Sam Dantzler, I'm Tony Gonzalez. This has been GarageCast. Have a fantastic Tuesday, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.